Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right in and tearing up the rulebook on the so-called perfect diet. We hear constantly about what we absolutely shouldn't be eating, right? But the latest science is actually telling us a completely different story about what our bodies really need. So our core focus today is on exactly why food diversity matters now, like right now, and how a simple, everyday mindset shift can completely revolutionize your health without driving you crazy in the grocery store. We're going to learn how to become the conductor of our own plates. So let's dive straight into this core philosophy from our source material. Eating well is not about restriction. It's really not. I want you to imagine your daily diet as a giant, beautiful orchestra. Every single whole food you eat brings something totally unique to the performance. One food might bring vitamin C. That's your brass section. Another drops in some folate or potassium. Others bring the crucial fiber that your gut literally relies on to function. No single food has to do everything. Just like no single instrument can play an entire symphony all by itself. You just need to keep adding new players to the stage.
All right, part one, the perfect diet trap and escaping the grocery rut.
Okay. We all know we should eat better. But real life, being busy, being exhausted after work, it completely gets in the way. So we fall into this classic trap. Take the frozen vegetable rut, for example. Broccoli, peas, spinach. Now, don't get me wrong. Frozen veggies are fantastic. They're super convenient, they're packed with nutrients, and they last forever in the freezer. They absolutely deserve a prime spot in your orchestra. But the problem isn't the frozen food itself. It's the rut. If you're grabbing the exact same bag of frozen broccoli every single Tuesday and those become the only vegetables you ever eat, well, you're missing out on some huge opportunities to expand your nutritional lineup.
Because here is the absolute crucial point. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is expansion. A truly healthy diet isn't about hunting down one magical, hyped-up superfood or hitting the perfect macro split for breakfast. It's about looking at the overall pattern of what you eat over time. Different foods contain entirely different mixtures of phytochemicals and nutrients. Even leafy greens that look practically identical on a nutrition label, like, say, spinach versus kale, they contain completely different compounds. You definitely don't want your orchestra consisting of the same three instruments playing the exact same song day in and day out.
Let's move on to part two, why food diversity matters now, the science of your gut. So let's look at the emerging science here. To really understand why you need all these different players on your plate, we have to ask a bigger question. How does this dietary variety actually impact your internal ecosystem? We hear the word microbiome tossed around constantly these days, but how does the sheer variety of the food you chew and swallow directly influence it?
Well, a truly fascinating concept here is resilience. Your gut microbes interact directly with the food components that make it all the way down to your colon. This includes various types of dietary fiber and compounds that your upper digestive tract just didn't fully break down. Because different plants provide totally different types of these compounds, a diet packed with a huge variety of plant foods gives your microbes a much broader selection of substrates to work with. It's basically like giving a construction crew a massive, diverse variety of building materials instead of just handing them the exact same pile of red bricks every single morning. More materials mean a stronger, much more resilient ecosystem.
Which brings us to this massive number you've probably seen floating around your social media feeds lately. 30. The popular recommendation to eat 30 different plants a week. While research definitely shows changes in gut microbial composition based on plant diversity, our sources explicitly stress that this number is an inspiration. It's not a strict biological requirement that you need to obsess or stress over. We literally do not have a scientifically established magic number that guarantees a perfect gut. If you currently eat, say, 5 different plant foods a week, and you work your way up to 10 and then 15, that is incredibly meaningful progress. Don't let 30 become just another exhausting nutrition rule that makes you feel like you're failing. All right, part 3, your nutrition orchestra, expanding your daily repertoire.
So how do we do this? The easiest way to start is by completely flipping your mindset. The old way of dieting was all about subtracting, right? We'd make these long, punishing lists of foods we supposedly aren't allowed to eat anymore. But the new challenge? Concentrate only on what you can add. Add another fruit to your morning. Try a new bean in your soup. Sprinkle some seeds over your oatmeal. When you focus on adding rather than restricting, eating healthy suddenly feels way less like a punishment and way more like a fun exploration.
And executing this is surprisingly easy. You don't need to suddenly learn how to cook a totally new, complicated meal from scratch. You just need simple lateral substitutions to create a completely different nutritional landscape. Think about it. If you always use black beans for taco night, just swap them out for chickpeas next time. If your go-to green is spinach, grab the kale. If you literally eat an apple every single day at lunch, buy a pear. These micro changes require zero extra cooking skills, but to your microbiome, you've just introduced an entirely new section to the orchestra.
Oh, and please, whatever you do, don't forget the small players. When people hear plant diversity, they usually just picture these massive, intimidating bowls of raw fruits and vegetables. But remember, the orchestra is much larger than that. A single tablespoon of fresh parsley might not look like a big deal on your plate, but to your gut, that is a completely new plant. A tiny sprinkle of sesame seeds, that counts. A pinch of turmeric, counts. A spoonful of ground flax, absolutely counts. Because herbs and spices are used in such small amounts, they are quite literally the ultimate low-effort way to skyrocket your plant diversity without actually increasing the size of your meal.
Now, if you're sitting there struggling to think of ways to actually combine these new players, let other cuisines be your teacher. If you stop thinking about individual isolated ingredients and start exploring global culinary traditions, eating more variety feels way less like a tedious nutrition assignment and more like a real adventure. Think Indian lentil dal, Japanese edamame dishes, vibrant Mediterranean bean salads. Different cultures have spent thousands of years figuring out the absolute most delicious ways to combine plants, grains, and spices. So borrow their wisdom.
Which brings us to our final section, conducting your symphony and building simple habits. Let's wrap this up by looking at how to actually build these concepts into effortless daily routines so you can just conduct your symphony on autopilot. By following these 3 really simple steps, dietary variety becomes a total habit. First, just keep a running list on your phone of interesting foods you hear about. Second, intentionally disrupt your grocery store autopilot. Don't just zombie walk down the same produce aisle. Go check out the bulk bins or actually look at the fresh herbs. And third, just buy 1 unfamiliar item per trip. Seriously, you do not need a refrigerator packed full of weird vegetables you don't know how to cook. 1 new ingredient and 1 new preparation method per week is plenty. Now, what happens if you try a new player and, well, they hit a sour note? You just don't like it. Well, keep these 3 factors in mind. Texture matters, temperature matters, seasoning matters. If you try a new food and genuinely dislike it, you might just dislike the way it was prepared. Hate steamed broccoli? Try roasting it with a little olive oil and garlic. Can't stand raw kale? Massage it into a salad or just hide it in a really hearty soup. You want to expand your palate the same way a musician practices. Experiment, make some mistakes, and try again. Which leads us to a highly reassuring thought straight from our source material. You don't have to conduct the entire symphony today. Just invite 1 more musician onto the stage. Ultimately, just developing a willingness to explore is infinitely more valuable to your long-term health than strictly sticking to some restrictive, perfect meal plan that secretly makes you miserable. Keep the reliable foods you already love and just slowly, gently invite new ones to join the mix. Your orchestra doesn't need every single musician on stage for every single song. So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. The next time you're standing under those harsh fluorescent lights at the grocery store, I don't want you to ask yourself, what should I be avoiding or what am I not allowed to eat? Instead, look down at your cart and ask yourself this. Who can I add to my nutrition orchestra today? 1 new spice, 1 new bean, 1 new handful of fresh herbs. What is the 1 small step you can take today to build a vibrant, diverse, and thriving ecosystem inside of you? Take that step, and I promise your microbiome will thank you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy conducting.